Starting. It says this hangout on there is live. I'm live. I'm about to go ahead and get this one out the way. I've still been doing these cold katas. Enough sharp. Where am I at? So let me hurry up and get this out the way. All right. So I'm on this coldkata.com and I don't know, a couple videos, two videos I was talking about the original cold kata for business rules. And now this cold kata that I recently implemented at Starbucks, I just did this more business rules in which if you looked at my technical blog, bizmonger.wordpress.com, you'll see, I don't know, you see the context of the problem that I was working on in which I got significant guidance based on the objective being a maintainable solution that's straightforward and not necessarily obfuscated. He provided some really good help that basically is a design pattern that I'm probably going to use and abuse towards everything. But oh yeah, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Oh, come here, come here, come here. All right. So as I share my screen, I'll go back. This is the more business rules kata. That is the second part of the business rules kata, in which I'll just go ahead and read it. The rules that specify the overall processing of an order can be complex too, particularly as they often involve waiting around for things to happen. In kata 16, we had to look at the business rules that applied when we receive payment for various kinds of products. Handling payments is just a small part of the overall workflow required to process an order. For the company whose application we're looking at, order processing looks something like, then they say, if we accept an order over the web, then we have to wait for payment to arrive, unless it's a credit card order. In the case of credit card orders, we can process the order immediately and ship the goods, but only if the goods are in stock. If they are not currently in stock, we have to delay processing credit card orders until they become available again. Come here, come here, come here. We can receive a check and payment of an existing order, in which case we ship the goods unless they are not in stock, in which case we hold the check until the goods become available. And then we can receive a purchase order for a new order. We only accept these from companies with an established credit account. In this case, we ship the goods, assuming they are in stock, and also generate an invoice against the purchase order. At some point in the future, we'll receive payment against this invoice, and the order will be complete. My phone is, silence my phone. All right. At any time before the goods are shipped, the customer may cancel an order. Each step in this process may occur many days after the previous step. For example, we may take an order over the web on Monday, receive a check for this order on Thursday, then ship the goods and deposit the check when the item is received from our own suppliers on the following Tuesday. How can we design an application to support these kinds of rules? Of course, businesses change the rules all the time, so we better make sure that everything we come up with makes it easy to update the workflow. And so that was posted by Dave Thomas, aka Twitter handle Prag Dave. So this is the kata that I worked on about an hour and a half ago. Well, actually, I wrapped up about half an hour ago, and then I drove back home from Starbucks. Come here. So created a module. Control Alt L in Visual Studio brings up Solution Explorer. I created a payments FS file. Within the FS file, I named this module Payments Implementation. And here are the types that I declared. Come here. I guess I could say this, right? Say types. Come here. So here's the types I declared. Client credit, they either have credit or no credit. Maybe I should call that half. And in addition to that, I have a type called payment status. in which this is when they make a payment, this is the status of the payment that they're making, whether they have a credit card and the product is in stock, or they have a credit card and the product is out of stock. They're paying with check and the product is in stock. They're paying with check and the product is out of stock. They have a purchase order and the product is in stock. They have a purchase order, the product is out of stock. And there is some context based on that purchase order, regardless of if it's in stock or out of stock, which is based on the client having credit for that purchase order in order for them to make the transaction, or them not having credit at all to have a purchase order. And then we have a purchase order payment, and which means that they actually paid um, after they issued a purchase order and got the goods, and they finally made a payment, or just no payment whatsoever. So, and then there's some commands based on the various case values of a payment status, such as accept payment, hold payment, wait for payment, ship, send invoice. Okay. And then, so those are the types that I define. Come here. Come here. Yo, I said come here. Hold up. Yo, I gotta do shift, right? God damn it. Why am I? Come here. All right. Yeah. So if I do this right here, uh-huh, I'll show you my functions. These are the functions that I have. A little helper function called is authorized. That's based on a purchase order being used, hence purchase order and in stock. And I basically have a number of functions, right? I have handle order, I have handle shipping, I have handle invoice. And then I have the mother of all handles, which is handle all, in which I pass in all these functions. And then the payment status. These functions will then basically be ran in the list.choose function, in which for each function within the list of functions that we're going to run this choose on, we're going to basically invoke that function, passing in the payment status right here. And here's the client right here. We have a method called handle for, in which we pass in the different functions that we're going to be using in our business rules, and once, which is going to be within a list. And then we say, hey, our result will be handle all, right? Handlers for, and then credit and out of stock, which is arbitrary because we can use any of these over here. And so when I execute that, come here. When I execute that, this is the F# interactive window. And for clarity, come here. Control Alt C will clear everything for me. And then if I just want to have focus over here, we see hold payment, right, for using a credit card and it's out of stock. Now, if I change this to credit card and in stock, then we're going to see if the previous command with credit card and out of stock was hold payment. Let me clear that out. Now we're doing a credit and it's in stock. I'll do crap. I'll do credit and stop. Come here. In stock. Now execute this line. Then we see accept payment and ship. Right. I could then do. Where am I at? Go back to my types. I could do a purchase order and in stock. And when I do a purchase order in stock, come here. Am I supposed, is that of a type? Yeah, it's of a type. I say have credit. Yeah. Then I can do something like this. Come here. Shoot, come here. Yeah, come here. And so when we have a purchase order in stock, it ships and then it sends the invoice. Um, there's no payment, right? Because they have to send us a payment, but they're also an established client of ours, right? They have credit. If they had no credit, then I'm curious if this works. If they had no credit, stop, come here. Instead of ship and send invoice, this is going to say send invoice. Well, that's not right. Um, yeah, so that's a bug that I just discovered because they don't have credibility. And so that send invoice was up here, right? But we really want to say, we really want to say, you know, credit when credit, can I do this? Is authorized. How do I do this? I wonder if I can do this. Is authorized, and then credit. No, how do I do this? Is authorized, and then do credit over here. Else, if I can figure this out, yeah, yeah. Then some invoice, and then else none. So let me go ahead and register that function. Everything should get updated. Do Alt Control C. Let's say purchase order in stock, but they don't have credit with us as a purchase order submitter. I do Alt Enter. God damn it! How does it still send an invoice? What did I do wrong? Is authorized, right? When it is authorized, that should be true. Let me see if that's why I don't get paid to do this. Register that, go back, clear up my window, and there we go. That's what I'm looking for. And so nothing, right? And that's what I expect. And so this is what I did differently. Well, I did the same thing with my last code kata, but what I did differently is just like the last code kata that I did, instead of defining all my types from reading the requirements, I instead decided to go write all my functions first, let my functions flesh out my data types, and then I supply my data types because my functions had actually dictated my data types. And so I've been using that paradigm, and it's been working out for me. And so I'm learning as I'm going. I think Brian just joined, and because I hear something in the background, and I'm going to go to my edit posts, and I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So this is on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to go to my, oh, where am I at? Oh, where is this at? Oh, where's my thing? Google Hangout. What's up, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm, you know, I'm not prepared.
Oh, no, no, I just send out random invites, and most of the time people just ignore it. But
I
I,
see.
I just,
I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation. You know, so
oh
you
shoot,
know,
my bad. So,
this is the miserable poor man's vacation. You know, so oh, let me turn my camera on. Okay, all right, there we go. Yeah,
have you
yeah.
started messing around with F sharp yet? Did
Let me
you?
turn on my expensive lighting here. Let me see. All right, here we go. Okay, all right. Is that okay? So you always do stuff on the couch, so now I'm on the couch now in my
I
squalid.
don't recommend. I don't recommend trying to be like me.
All right, okay. All right, all right. Okay, so now this might be a little bit more, but F sharp. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and like I said, everything that I do in C sharp, I will attempt to find a F sharp equivalent.
Equivalent or alternative.
Or advantage also, because the catch is, a technology company about the new stuff, and every now and then, I would say 50 to 60% of the time, Microsoft does this quite frequently. They have to explain their new technology by bashing their own old technology. Funny to me is that you learn a lot about the old technology when they start bashing it, when they
Mm,
start saying negative things about it. C sharp cannot do this. This is why we need F sharp. But people that work for the company have a political, emotional incident occur. So they rarely speak in these negative ways, these quote unquote negative ways. But this is often the best way to describe the technology. Um, it's like you need F sharp because it cannot, C sharp cannot do X, Y, and Z. And look forward to the talk that does things like that, explains things like that. Like you need R, like for example, R, the data visualization technology that Microsoft has acquired, this open source. It's for how you say that?
statisticians.
Status,
I don't know how to say
they,
it.
it's for statisticians to visualize data, and it has the data visualization tools built right in it. That's why you want to be interested in R. The only other competitor in the space is Python. And, it's very rare that when someone wants to talk to you about R, do they just talk like that? They just say, you need it because you can't do this. This is why I like a lot of JavaScript culture tech talks, because a lot of them have profane language in it. The guy's drinking, he's drinking a beer, he's standing before the audience just telling you how shitty this other thing is in order to explain why he's using this thing. And it sounds like it's negative talk, but often the emotions and the history and the human story help us see the value.
You
And
want to know my motivation for attempting to learn F sharp?
what?
I want money.
Well, yeah. See, if that were the case, you would have stayed a C++ programmer.
Oh, they're probably making money too now. I mean, I think C++ programmers
Yeah,
always made money.
yeah, I mean, this might be out of date, but back in the day when I was just starting out, like in 96, 97, you know, the choice was clear to me: learn C++ to make some money, or do this other shit. And I did the other shit.
You did the VB.
Yeah, yes, VB. And I found out later that C++ grafted on object-oriented principles. It wasn't really a representative citizen of object-oriented programming. Java was,
Why do you say that?
because Java is a representative of object-oriented programming. Java is not a representative of connecting to a database in an elegant, efficient manner. Microsoft's ADO.NET is that. It is, and C sharp copying Java plus the elegant connection to a database makes the .NET framework superior to Java.
Yeah,
The
but C++ is still object oriented, right? Isn't it C with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
classes?
But the object-oriented features were sort of Frankenstein grafted on, whereas Java was designed from the ground up to express the theory of object orientation in practice. And as
I
long
always
as you,
thought the difference between the two were header files that I never understood were why they were necessary in C++. And then, I mean, I think the real difference is garbage collection. But I mean, your latest versions of C++ now. I was talking about C++ from like Microsoft Foundation classes when I was doing that back in like 2003 or 2007. Yeah, I was doing it in 2007. Um, but I don't know. It's if it has an interface and it has abstract classes, it has virtual methods. It's object oriented to me. But I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the features are there, but when you get into the feel, the sort of aesthetic, you can start to feel things about a technology also. And you could tell that the designers did not have an undying love for object oriented programming when they first started building C++ plus plus or C. So that there's a heritage that dominates. And, I'm sure, should I go take the trouble of doing the research, I can find the many, many examples of people in the world of C++ plus plus telling you that C++ plus plus was not made for object-oriented programming. It was it was not made originally for object-oriented programming. They added that shit on later, and you start to feel that as you work with it.
I could have sworn the Gang of Four book. I thought their examples were in C++. I could go back there and
Oh,
get
sure,
it.
the examples were in C++, plus plus, but the Gang of Four is not trying to be object-oriented purists. They're just telling you this is the language that's being used. The reason why functional programming didn't start off from the beginning is because the hardware could not support the languages that were functional at that time. I think only Erlang really got a footing, but that's not in the United States. That was like a Swedish thing. So that's the only reason why functional programming, because functional programming from an academic point of view makes perfect sense. Because if you're taking math classes and you're doing math and you start getting into computers, then you want your math to look as much, you want your computer code to look as much as like math code as possible. And that's what functional programming gives you. Your computer has that math, your computer language stuff has mathematical purity, the mathematical purity in of functional languages. But at that time, the hardware just couldn't handle it. The amount of memory required just couldn't handle it.
Well, for a PC, but I mean, back in the day, I thought everything was running off mainframes, right?
Yeah,
Surely mainframes can handle
still
that.
couldn't handle it. Still, I mean, I'm sure the Swedish or the telecom company in Europe that got into Erlang, I'm sure they had the big mainframe hardware to handle it. But for the rest of us, in the world of academic, in the academic world, not us, because I wasn't there, but I'm talking like, homebrew computer club type people. They had to deal with the memory problems and the hardware constraints. So they went the C route. Linux is based on C, C++. So from a traditional hardcore Linux background point of view, you want to write in the computer, you want to write in the language that your computer runs on. That's really when you have the power. You want to write in the language that your computer is running on. So in the case of Windows, it's C++. In the case of Linux, it's C, C++. So when you don't know those languages to those people, you're dealing with bullshit, from their point of view, because you're not really a real computer guy because you're not writing in code in the language that the computer's running on.
Mm.
But that's an old 1980s hardcore thing that may not be of importance now. But definitely in this era of JavaScript is not as important as it used to be. So, but F sharp, I mean, you should understand that your interest in F sharp forces the old guard that many of them trying to hire you or considering hiring you, many of them would have to admit that they had to give up on functional programming because the hardware wasn't good enough. And then you getting back into the politics that you and I often talk about on this channel, you can realize that they wouldn't want to admit that in front of you. You know, they know that history, but they might want to position themselves as your superior and not admit to you that we didn't have the technology at the time. So your demand that we use functional programming, it's a reminder of that inferiority that they used to have back in the day. And when they're thinking of inferiority, getting back to politics, they're thinking of you being the inferior one and not their entire, historical background and, having the lack of hardware to run these functional languages on, so
Mm.
uh, it's they're not consciously thinking of these things, but it could be a subconscious bad feeling that comes over them when you come walking up saying, I need you to run and I need you to do this thing in functional programming, this functional programming thing. But functional programming still would, these people would still get into functional programming when you start showing them, just like with Erlang in the Erlang world, when you start running processes in parallel that are extremely fast, easy to maintain, easy to write. And that's where I think functional programming is going to start kicking ass. But the distance between where the company is and them being able to deal with their parallel processing needs is often very large. The company is in such bad shape, they have such legacy load that they don't even have the opportunity to think about optimizing their code. And that's where F Sharp would actually shine. They're too busy thinking about stuff that I've shared with you in previous episodes, like how do I connect to configuration files? How do I load JSON data? These basic day-to-day tasks, they're so busy trying to deal with that. How do I convert all this crazy ass ASP.NET Web Forms code into formal business rules? They're so busy with that they can't even get to the high-end luxury stuff. So that forces you to find companies who are already in that high-end luxury world, and that means you're going straight for the cream of the crop.
I mean, that sounds nice to me. Let me know that, or
I have
let them know that I'm at the door.
I can't think of one, besides Pimco. Pimco is the best in terms of Microsoft, hardcore Microsoft shop. They're the only company that I've ever worked for that could present at a conference, especially now under the leadership of the guy that I mentioned earlier. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm linked to him on LinkedIn, but he under his leadership, they're probably putting together a product that they could show at a Microsoft conference. But when I got there, they were very, very far away from being from for very, very far away from presenting anything in the public about any of their tech, in terms of the WPF, Microsoft related technology. So that's the problem. That's the real world problem with, most of the IT shops view their software as a cost center, so they want to work with it as little as possible until a fire breaks out.
Do you remember the transition from C++ to Java?
No, that's before my time. I really came into prominence when Java was and is ruling everything. And the number one reason why people went with Java was because the shit was free.
Yeah, I think that's still the case.
But again, these companies collectively did not understand that it was not free as in beer; it was free as in baby. So they had no company to help them support anything if anything went wrong. So And on top of that, there wasn't an open source culture. It wasn't a GitHub style culture going on. So when something went wrong, it could remain a mystery for months and months and months. So you'd walk into these meetings where they're talking about we had to roll back to version 3.056 because version 3.058 has a bug in it, and they don't even know how to fix the bug. They don't have the source code because there's no open source culture. It's just it was free. They released a new binary. We ran it, and it didn't work.
Mm.
Um, uh, and of course it's written in Java, but it's still you compile it into some sort of binary format. And okay, so how do we get in contact with the guy who's in charge of the source code? Okay, he'll be back from vacation in 3 months or something. He's a European guy. He has a big vacation. So so free as a baby. So now you're in this space because you got into it because it's free and you have no company supporting it. So that's why Red Hat is so important because they made themselves into the company you can turn to when you have these open source free as in baby problems.
I think I watched the documentary. There's some I don't know. I was watching Netflix, and there's a company that this is, I guess, when Linux was introduced, and then there was a company that made a business of supporting the Linux OS, and like on opening day, like their starting price had like it like quadrupled or something. But anyway, yeah, I'm tired, man. I've been trying to like internalize this F sharp, this functional programming, so I can immediately start like, I don't know, just be fluent in it. Like I'm fluent in C sharp. I don't have to think that hard, but I still have to like think really hard about how to write syntax. Some days it's easy, but when I take like a week off, I feel like I'm starting all over.
Yeah, I noticed. Actually, I have I use Hootsuite, so my tweets I can discover something on the internet today, but 2 weeks later it'll show up on my Twitter feed because I'm using Hootsuite now, so I'm slowing down the amount of tweets that I tweet every day. So I realized I was fire hosing the rest of the world. I was just
What's wrong with that?
well, it's hard to keep track of because every tweet that I tweet, I want to save as a blog post. So I'll compile together 50 tweets into a single blog post.
Oh, okay.
And I can actually demo that. I have some code I can demo going forward. Um, but I noticed that in one of the things that's going to come out on my Twitter feed that there's a whole bunch of F sharp symbols, like a whole table. Microsoft, they have a document on F sharp at docs.microsoft something something, and there's a whole set of F sharp symbols. So the first thing I would do in terms of learning the syntax is go back to that symbol chart and see, do I recall the meaning, like for example bracket, um, open bracket, vertical bar, open bracket, right? What is that in F sharp? Vertical bar, open bracket.
You mean pipe and then
Yeah,
the greater than sign?
yeah.
That means a data feed.
Okay, exactly. So there's a whole bunch of other symbols just like that, and I would look at that first. Because I don't think there's that many F sharp keywords that will be mysterious to me. It's mostly that type of stuff. And also, in terms of teaching myself F sharp, I would approach it by leveraging my C sharp knowledge. So I would say, okay, in C sharp, I do this stuff with a list. And then I noticed in F sharp, they have this thing called list map. So what's the equivalent in
Oh,
link? So I think the select method in link is similar. The I enumerable dot select.
is I think it's choosing F sharp,
Yeah. Okay.
but
So I would start there. I would go step by step,
the
and there's
where I didn't mean to cut you off. Like I think the select in C sharp is choosing F sharp, and I think the where in C sharp is filter in F sharp.
yeah, yeah. So I don't need to memorize those things, but in terms of you know me understanding that there are conceptual mappings that are legitimate. See, I don't want to blindly make these conceptual mappings between C sharp patterns and F sharp patterns because some of the patterns are intentionally not there in F sharp. They're intentionally not there. So I can say I can do this in C sharp, but I know this is not even present in F sharp because F sharp has its own way of doing this.
So the I think the major building blocks of F sharp when constructing functions are map, filter, and I would say reduce, but fold. I think in functional programming it's called reduce, but fold has, I guess, a little bit more functionality than reduce. So those are the main functions. And with those functions, my understanding is you have other functions that build on top of it within the F sharp core library.
Mhm.
That's my understanding. I mean, it
Yeah.
could be flawed.
One of the things I found out in my limited research so far is, for example, in C sharp, we have the is operator to determine the type of an instance of an object. So we can say object O is um, customer. Object O is order. And we know as C sharp people that the is operator is not as performant. So we're encouraged to use as. And when as returns null, that implies that it's not the type.
Mm.
And so that's one hardcore example of a concept that is not in C sharp because in C sharp we have discriminated unions.
I mean, F sharp.
I mean F sharp you got the this we have the discriminated union. So it doesn't even need the is operator. It has its own way of doing it. And so being able to go through things like that and just put together lists I'm sure there's a blogger doing that out there, but a lot of the blogs that I've read on F sharp speak as if C sharp does not exist.
Almost said something really smart.
C sharp should not exist.
I was like, it shouldn't.
Yeah, but see, Microsoft is the Apple computer of data, but there's no way to communicate to the public the beauty of dealing with data. Okay, so Microsoft is going to do as much as possible to support businesses and their handling of data. The only language most businesses are used to are the C-like languages, the C-like languages. So of course you would come up with a language like C sharp. But as I've said many, many times, Anders Heilsberg intentionally designed C sharp with these functional features in it. And what that tells me, and what that should tell every single business leader who cares, is that C sharp can be treated like a stepping stone into F sharp. So C sharp, from an F sharp point of view, C sharp exists solely to migrate your developers over to F sharp. That's what it exists for.
I that approach didn't work for me.
But that's because of the certain business leaders you were dealing with. But this scenario, when you start to prove that the F sharp version of business rule X runs 3 billion times faster, or not 3 billion times, runs several times faster, and is easier to maintain, and it's easier to make changes, which is really easy to maintain. Um, this objective data should encourage the person to make that migratory plunge. But I know from my experience that when you come into a company, when Scott walks into a company and starts talking about F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, that the business leader in their cynical ass, view of the world is basically hearing this person is trying to take over the code base and make themselves indispensable to this company. This person is trying to make it harder for me to hire other people and replace them. That's what the business person is hearing because there's not enough F sharp people. And you know, when you're walking around a store and somebody thinks you're stealing something, you can't make that person stop thinking that. And I just know many of the impoverished companies you've approached, you know, um, mistakenly because you should not work with these poor ass companies. They think on that level. They think Scott is here to, especially when they do the stealing themselves. They do stealing themselves. They've met imposters that were not black, and they find it hard to believe that this black guy is there to not be an imposter, to not steal anything, but to actually improve their entire business and launch their business forward into the future. Some people just don't have that instinctive insight into people. They'll just assume because they're surrounded by it. They'll assume that you're a thief too, just like everybody else is. How could you possibly be better than all these other people that surround me? You know.
So how do you think someone introduces, in this case, F sharp into a .NET shop?
Yeah, like I said before, it really starts with parallel. I mean, my memory is fuzzy on this, but based on podcast episodes I've heard about Erlang, the reason why Erlang kicks ass is because
Okay, I remember.
it runs in parallel. It does a lot of shit in parallel. Now in C sharp, now a C sharp guy would say, yeah, but we have four parallel. We have parallel
Cast
operation.
parallel library.
Yeah, yeah. But I think F sharp has this shit not tacked on. The parallel stuff in .NET is an extra thing built on top of .NET, whereas in F sharp, I'm given the impression that it's built in F sharp. It's closer to the core of the language itself. So, um, and that's really where it starts. So, but again, I keep based on my limited experience, see, I've had to work for really crappy companies. Most of the companies I worked for had no love for Microsoft, so they had a very cynical view toward their own assets. Okay, so and I'm not including a company like PIMCO because PIMCO uh, has the highest respect for their own code base. They're one of the most they treat their code, even their COBOL code, they treat it like a classic car, like an old car.
That's
They take
good.
their,
I
their,
want to
their
work for a company like that.
But I'm talking about early in my career, especially, and I will name UCLA Medical Center Computing Services as that example of a enterprise that invested in Microsoft and then turned on Microsoft. Um, and Microsoft could be blamed for that behavior, but still, you already have Microsoft in your enterprise, so let's not turn on yourself. You're actually attacking yourself. So um, there is day-to-day operations, and then there's the behind that are like the real high-end, algorithmic type of code. So there's two types of code. You have your pipe code. I need to get this data. I need to move data from one place to another. So this sort of blue collar style work I've been doing most of my life. But the stuff that Scott is talking about, you're talking about algorithmic stuff. where this company has an algorithm. This company has a set of complex business rules, and F sharp to me has a role in that area. And that's where F sharp should come into the picture and then start to work its way toward the the pipe stuff. But most companies, when they hire people, based on my experience, they want the pipe stuff done. They want the plumbing stuff done. I need to get this data from point A to point B, and you're going to build the pipes to make that happen. And trying to insinuate F sharp into that, the only way I would do it is through unit tests, because the company usually, because it's a crappy company, usually the company I would work for would not have any unit tests at all. I would write all my unit tests in F sharp if I were like that in love with F sharp, because that would be your green field. But doing that could turn off everybody from wanting to write unit tests.
They don't write a unit test anyway. You about to get me started. Like, so, like the thing that I like about F sharp, the functional part of F sharp, or just a functional language. Period. I think is that it's already it's already testable code, right? Because they're writing pure functions. There's no side effects. There's no all the dependencies are 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 part of the parameters of the function. There's no like I keep saying like it's like inherently testable. So even if they don't write tests, whoever's coming in after them to maintain it, it theoretically, I think, right? But I mean, I don't really have experience in this. Is I don't think they have to jump through as many hoops to prove that the code works, just because it constrains you to write testable code. That's my thought process.
Yep, and I would take that and incorporate it in my model. Um, the all of that high end precious algorithmic business rule stuff needs to have unit tests, and those unit tests could all be written in F sharp. The actual code is written in F sharp, so the unit test can be written in F sharp, and then from there it could migrate outward as people see the advantage. It can migrate outward, but the problem is again, a lot of companies have these fires, and these fires break out, these emergencies break out, and they're so busy trying to deal with that they're not going to investigate the advantages of F sharp. The other way that F sharp will uh, become interesting is when someone on Earth puts together a product that is so incredibly superior, and the performance is so incredible, and then they find out, and then it hits the stock market, and then it becomes famous in the stock market, in the business world becomes famous, and then people find out that shit was written in F sharp. That's really what has happened in the past with almost every other thing. Like the when the
What
web.
was that?
uh,
WhatsApp? Wasn't that what was the famous app that was written in like I don't know if it was Elixir or Erlang, where they claimed like 2 million. I don't know. Was it 2 million concurrent users on one server? It was something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the phone system, like a phone system not having any problems for decades, could be a compelling example, but it hasn't hit the American imagination via this. I was sitting here watching Bloomberg before I got on this call, and you know, these people are not talking about products that are have F sharp in it. A great example is ATM machines. People, when OS2 back in the day, when OS2 was becoming less and less popular, people thought OS2 was completely gone. We used to joke about OS2 being completely gone until Come to find out that almost every ATM in the United States, let alone around the world, was running on OS 2. And
Mm.
there are certain business leaders that know that, and so they have a mysterious respect for everything related to OS 2 because they're making this money off of the products that OS 2 is running. And I'm very confident that a similar thing will happen to F Sharp, and someone will love this product so much they'll start investigating and realize it's an F Sharp, and then boom. So this is why I get bothered when companies like Facebook and Google try to invent their own languages instead of taking something like F Sharp.
You sent a link, or you posted a link about some Microsoft research fuzzy logic testing to exploit bugs dealing with security flaws within systems, and they wrote that in F sharp. You don't think that might be an example of such
Yeah, yeah, but
a program?
it has to make somebody some money, and then I'll start
Make
thinking.
or save?
Yeah, did that post come from Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg, or did it come from a tech blog?
I thought it was a tech blog, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. So when you start seeing stories from business journalists, then F Sharp has finally hit the big time in the United States. Now, if you were to go to Europe, like you've already done when you went to the NDC, um, I'm sure there's got to be an F Sharp cell somewhere out there, a couple of them, because of the reputation of Erlang. So a company like Nokia, for example, had Nokia not been treated so bad by Microsoft, it's very possible that Nokia could have, or they even may have right now, a Microsoft culture that has a deep respect for F Sharp because Nokia is so close to the world of Erlang, the influence of Erlang. So it's like you would have to go not just to Microsoft F Sharp conferences, you might want to go to Erlang conferences also, and you know, business network in that world and see what they're doing. And then you'll find the company. So for me here in Southern California, WPF, the kings of WPF have been PIMCO. PIMCO has been number one. The king of Silverlight was Fox, 20th Century Fox Film Entertainment. I put a was on that because, you know, it's dying. Um, the In terms of SharePoint, Office, the way Microsoft envisioned the Microsoft Office throughout an enterprise, Amgen. Amgen to me is a shining example of the use of Microsoft products around the Office suite of tools and solutions. So I can't name a single F sharp anything um, here in Southern California, but I'm looking forward to finding out. My instinct is telling me there's got to be a couple of places in Northern Europe that's just totally F sharp crazy because of
No.
because of the influence of Erlang.
Jet.com is all F sharp.
Oh yeah, I think I saw something. There was a lady, young
Rachel
lady.
Reese.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But see, Jet.com is being clobbered by Amazon.
man, Jet.com, it's Amazon, and I mean Jet.com was created probably to attempt to compete with Amazon.
Yeah. Now, okay, yeah.
So I
So
mean,
yeah,
they
you've just
to
given
take
me.
market share, but I mean, I expect Amazon to like be Coca Cola. No,
Yeah, but you just given me the example. Had Jet.com somehow become the darling of Wall Street, then F sharp would go along with it because that's the getting back to politics again. That's the emotional payoff. There's an emotional payoff. When somebody's making all this money off of Jet.com stock, and then you come in and tell them, yeah, Jet.com works on F sharp, really, so they want to hear that. They want to listen to you now, uh, you know. But I
Hmm.
don't think I don't, I would say Jet.com is a great start.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh,
In fact, I want to go back and listen to I think it was a video with her in it. She's talking about the advantage. I think she's on.net, right?
yeah, she's on .NET Rocks a couple episodes. You can YouTube her. I think she talks a lot about microservices and what they've learned, the advantages and the challenges. So yeah, I think she talks a lot about the back end support.
What's her name again?
Rachel Reese. I met her when I was out in DC.
Yeah, she's um, on.net 9 months ago. Rachel Reese.
Uh,
All right, so I'll send that link to you. Um, put it in the show notes for this episode.
that's what's up.
And I guess
Yeah,
eventually one day we'll graduate to lower thirds,
graduate to what?
adding in lower thirds.
Lower thirds. What does that mean?
The lower third of the screen having our name and our Twitter.
Uh,
Let's see, because when I look at the on.net episode, they're using the same thing that we're using. But this is going away. I hear that Google Hangouts is going to be gone because it's too convenient for us, and Google doesn't, I don't know, Google doesn't have a way to make money off this, I guess, or insert advertising into the call that we're on right now, and so they're going to eventually get rid of the Hangouts. In terms of going directly to Google, they're going to use the video call like Skype, but they're not going to allow you to.
yo, did you hit a mute button? I can't hear anything. Okay, microphone check. I hear tapping on the microphone. I hear you kind of now. Can you say something? Something happened.
See, I started messing around. I started to look for the lower. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah, I was starting to look for the lower third thing, and I guess Google heard me. Their AI, they said, "Oh, we got to cut this off." Yeah, it's probably in the toolbox. Yeah,
So
the
when
toolbox.
when's your official kickoff day to go full throttle into learning F sharp?
Well, no, I don't like again. I don't do it in a dramatic way. I do it in a gradual way. It's almost like behavioral modification.
Okay.
So I have to come up with a use case that I need that will drive me into F sharp. And for me, this I believe the use case is in object oriented programming. I'm already not interested in having vertical hierarchies of classes. I do not like the inheritance system. It is too difficult to maintain.
I don't like UML.
Yeah, most UML is describing a hierarchy of classes, these sort of vertical silos of classes. Interface-based programming encourages us to set things side by side instead of on top of each other in an object-oriented context. That alone is F sharp friendly. The second F sharp friendly thing is that we talked about on the episode that you can now download from my OneDrive because I edited it.
Thank you.
Uh, you can download in that episode. We talk about um, the the F sharp friendliness of not having to define an object formally in order to obtain data and still be able to query that data in the same manner that we can query XML. So these sort of behaviors, from your point of view, may not be, it may not be enough. It may not be enough. But for me, these are,
Yeah, they also have object expressions too. That's somewhat related, where you don't have to create an entire class or really a type.
yeah, because
It's really an anonymous type.
yeah, people who, and I'm one of these people. I'm a C sharp person who also works in JavaScript, and there's a lot of flexibility in JavaScript at the expense of uh, lack of strong typing. That F sharp, I'm almost certain will eliminate. It is very possible that F sharp could be the best of both worlds in terms of what I want out of JavaScript, what I want out of C sharp.
Well, I thought that was TypeScript.
No, that's a different scenario. That's a different use case. TypeScript is just a way to maintain. I have this problem with my JavaScript now. I can't maintain my JavaScript very well. My websites will break very often because I can't test it correctly. I'll just put something out in production hoping it'll work because I'm trying to be cheap on Azure. I'm using free websites on Azure. I'm not using um, paid. I'm not using the standard tier because those are very expensive. I think one Azure website on the standard tier is like $50 a month, just one website. So um, that means I can't have multiple. I can't have a staging website or some sort of interim website that can show me the results of my JavaScript before I release it to production. I just have to throw my JavaScript out to production
Mm.
and hoping it'll work. And often it doesn't. It doesn't. And often the mistake is stupid that I got to go fix. Then I fix it and we move on. But it's starting to be very, very annoying to me. So I'm going to have to switch over to TypeScript to solve that particular problem. But that has nothing to do with data, you know, making data pipes without having to make all these damn classes.
And the fact that your parameters are generic by default within your method signature or within your function signature. So I don't know if you remember all the ceremony. Maybe it wasn't that much ceremony, but there's some ceremony that you have to make for a method that works on generic types. And with an F sharp, by default, it's generic, which means that by default, it's more maintainable. I'm getting really sleepy, man. I've been up for a while.
Yeah,
I appreciate you hopping on here, though. I wasn't expecting it. I was just an invitation, like whatever.
no, from my point of view, I've been like living in Iceland for 20 years, and then all of a sudden here comes Scott. Brings the Florida sunshine into Iceland. I'm like living in a cabin by myself for 20 years. So that's how it feels to me. Even though I'm in the bustling metropolis of Los Angeles, once you go corporate as a black man, you go corporate, you get isolated. So this is a novelty for me at the moment. Where I can just jump on the internet and start talking to somebody.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time in isolation, so I'm starting to do these videos so that I'm not alone with my thoughts.
Yeah, this is the best way to go. I mean, blogging also helps. Having things written down helps. Of training yourself to be a public speaker. When I was a kid, I used to win oratorical contests, but once I became an adult, my needs for being an orator just plummeted. The demand for an orator just went to the toilet. So you have to actually keep working at talking. And
Mm.
I'm still bad at it. I mean, in the episode that you have to download right now, I mean, I'm watching myself talk, and I realize I'm just terrible at being able to. And this is something where Don Box and Scott Hanselman are very great at. They can recover from a mistake very quickly and speak to the audience at the same time and concentrate on fixing the error all at the same time. Where I tend to completely shut down and so I'm just listening to myself, and I expect that if I keep doing this like a workout, if I keep doing this, I could get better at being able to just show my code,
That's
make my point, be able to talk to you at the same time, hear what you say, because a lot of times, happened at least a couple of times where you ask me a question, and it looks like I'm ignoring answering the question when I in fact didn't even hear it because I'm concentrating too damn hard trying to figure out whatever problem I have.
yeah. I have the same issue. I
Yeah. So working this out, eventually you get your chops together. There are a lot of developers go to these speaking clubs, speakeasy clubs.
you mean Toastmasters.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll go there to get their chops together because, as I said before on that episode, that you're already starting on the path of networking with a certain class of business person and tech person. And when your verbal presentation is not in order, you could miss out on a lot of opportunities. So, um, yeah,
I want to. I don't know. My goal is to just proliferate. It's gonna start off as proliferating crap until I start proliferating some pretty standardized quality content. But just get to the point where I done put out so much, I'm undeniable. There's no reason why you can restrict me from what I want. And I mean, that might sound like silly, but I'm dead serious, man. I want to be undeniable for what I want. I want
yeah,
money, and I don't want anybody to tell me why I can't have it. What else do I need to do?
yeah. It's a
Flat
very, it's a
out.
very artistic thing. I take the artistic approach, and George Clinton said it best. He said he's doing it in 3D, so good, it's good to me. So a lot of times people can come up to Scott and start saying, "Oh, Scott, your work is so great, your work is good," but you don't feel like it's good. you know and that's to me that relationship that you have with yourself. A lot of artists have the same, not all artists, all useful great artists, they have that
It's
relation,
useful.
they have that relationship with themselves where they can make a decision within themselves on whatever work that they're doing, and they go, this is it, I'm ready to stop now. you know so it's so good, it's good to you, right? It's not, other people may think what you're doing is great, but it really isn't great until you think it's great. And a lot of the work that I've done, especially when it comes to UX and visual presentation, data visualization. That's the other field I want to get into. And um, you know, I want my data to look as good as the code looks. I want my code to look as good as the data, and that's really a level of artistry and aesthetics that's beyond Apple, because Apple's code looks like shit. Okay, and I'm talking about Objective C. So I don't care. You can find the most famous Objective C rock star on the face of the earth who will hear what I have to say and go, "How dare you say that?" But the language itself, the language of Objective C, is hideous to me. It's just terrible.
Well, don't they have Swift now?
That's why they have Swift now,
I don't understand why they created a whole new language.
because they have to catch up with the rest of the world.
Well,
They have
why
to
don't they just adopt JavaScript or C Sharp?
because that would mean Microsoft. made something worthwhile. And Steve Jobs wasn't going to have that shit. Steve, and you know, Objective C came from Steve Jobs' old company. He was running Next. He
Hmm.
invented the Next computer. His company was called Next, Next, Next. And so, in the same manner that Bill Gates loves Visual Basic, Steve Jobs has this love affair with Objective C. But Objective C is very difficult. It's a 1980s. It's worse than C++ when it comes to its relationship with object-oriented programming. It's very difficult to maintain. It has weird conventions. Everybody that I've met that has a love for C sharp has made crazy amounts of money from Apple customers off of their code, and they've been working with that code for over 20 years, 15, 20 years. So they had the time to build up a whole lot of libraries and shortcuts and templates to deal with that shit. But a beginner, trying to get a beginner to learn Objective C and put stuff in the App Store, that shit's crazy. That's why Xamarin is so important. That's why Swift is so important because they know how shitty that language is. And it's from a company that's so perfectionist when it comes to their hardware as Apple, it's ridiculous that they have such terrible aesthetics around their code. So Swift is kind of a Johnny come lately apology for being so hideous when it comes to their code. So they have, it's you will never find someone on a YouTube video trying to explain to you how beautiful Objective C is.
So is Xcode the IDE for Objective C and Swift?
Uh, yes, I know it's the IDE for Objective C, and I'm sure Swift is tacked on there. Um,
So do they have similar tools for refactoring?
I I don't know.
Okay, all right.
The impression that I get is that they have a long way to go. This is why this is what's so shocking about Google, because I thought Google would be as irrational and emotional as Apple, but they actually are using TypeScript at Google in order to develop Angular 2. They're using TypeScript, which is from a political point of view, that's incredible that they would actually respect Microsoft publicly that much and use their products to build their own stuff. Because from an Apple point of view, they would rather work for 20 years trying to build the equivalent of TypeScript rather than just go get TypeScript. And that's what Swift is. They're going to work on Swift for 20 years until it becomes C sharp 4.0 or something,
Uh,
um, and that's really the problem there. So it's but Microsoft supposedly is giving me the opportunity, especially with the Xamarin, the promise of Xamarin. They're giving me the opportunity to have my code the way I like it and to have my UI the way I like it and have it run on all the other platforms. So that's really my ultimate goal is to be able to have that flexibility. And so I guess by the time I'm 60 years old, there are companies that are expecting that skill set.
Brian, I'm about to tap out. I'm tired. I really appreciate you coming on, dropping some knowledge,
So,
and you said this is going to be progressive for you. Um, you
yeah,
picking up F sharp.
anytime.
You should do these katas that I'm doing, man. Like this stuff is challenging. It's like my late mentor. He would like every morning he would wake up. He'll be at the breakfast table or in the living room, and he would just do his Sudoku, right? And that's how he kept his mind sharp. He had a PhD in mathematics, but he was already smart. But this is what he did. In a way, I kind of feel like if I live to be old, um, I'll just be doing cold katas every morning. You know what I mean? Keeping
Yeah,
my mind sharp.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I want to do. I want to be able to walk into a room and say, "Computer, turn on." Because I do it a lot for my kids. When my kids come over, especially when they were babies, I'd walk up to the computer and say, Computer, computer," and it wouldn't do anything. I had to reach down and flick the switch. You know, my kids looking at me. You know, it never does nothing. Dad, it never does nothing. You know, but eventually, I'm going to get into the Adreno, the those little tiny computers.
Yeah, I bought one from Radio Shack like a couple years
Well,
ago.
well, I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna do stuff like do voice commands and so all the code counters will come naturally for me wanting to have all these little things around automating tasks for me. So, but whenever I do a public speaking event in the future, you can credit yourself as helping me get ready to be that public speaker.
Really?
It'll either be your honor or your fault that I'm now speaking at an event. The last time I did a public presentation was for Silverlight, the Silverlight user group. And of course, you know what happened to Silverlight. So I'm going to start up again, maybe under UWP. I could be the UWP guy. I don't know because oftentimes by the time I get to UWP, it'll be so over, But anyway,
I mean, have you been digging into Xamarin Forms?
not even. I attempted.
That's where that stuff carries over to. You still got data template selectors, value converters. I
Yeah,
mean, you got
yeah.
a lot of that stuff. I won't
I
say a lot, but you have enough.
Yeah, I attempted to install Xamarin. I attempted to install Xamarin, and then I realized, oh yeah, for the Android shit, you gotta download 600 megabytes of Java shit. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, for the Microsoft shit, you gotta have an Apple computer to to get that shit to work. So I don't have a Mac to get the shit to work. I don't
You don't
have
need a Mac. You don't need a Mac. I mean, just
now, but back in the day when I first tried. Um,
okay.
but now it's getting better. And of course, now that Xamarin has joined Microsoft, it should get even better because Microsoft is going to buy some licenses behind the scenes, I know, and they're going to make it even better to get that experience more less costly. I would have to reserve an entire virtual machine just for Xamarin.
You got to get a beefy machine. I had to. I had to literally buy a new computer. I spent like $2,000 on a new computer
Yeah,
just to run Xamarin.
yeah,
Like it is what it is.
yeah. So it'll be a while, but
But your XAML will carry over. I love XAML.
yeah. Now see, right in terms of UI work, I'm trying to get Angular JS under control, and I'm still trapped in Angular 1. And I just found out, and I'm still reeling from this, that Angular, and this is yet like it's like the first thing I was talking about early on, you know, on this very call. I was talking about this earlier. Angular 1 is completely hostile to SEO. This is something they should have told me up front. Instead of talking about how great Angular is, talk about some negative shit too, okay? Angular 1 is completely hostile to SEO. You cannot find my blog post articles that I'm trying to expose to the tech world. You can't search on Bing for any of my shit, and you can barely find my shit on Google because the Bing search engine does not compile JavaScript. So according to Bing, the home page of my blog is blank.
Mm.
So it can't crawl my blog to find all the other links. So that's a real disappointment. That's a real. I would have to convert just for SEO. I have to convert everything back or run two different versions. And there's a way. There's these other ways to compile on the server side JavaScript to just for SEO, just for a search engine, and that's a discipline unto itself. Now Angular 2.0 is supposed to be better. So now, but I held back on Angular 2.0 because I am not confident that JavaScript, modern JavaScript, ECMAScript 2016 or 2015 is not um, it's not proliferated enough throughout the world for me to make the switch. That's my assumption. And so I have to migrate over to Angular. I have to migrate over to F sharp. So you see, I don't even, if I never took a job from another company ever again, I would have enough work to do for at least 3 years on my own, just trying to move my own shit in my own practice, you know, in terms of my self education, keep myself current. Uh, so, um,
I don't want to go. I don't want to do GUI work anymore. I just want to work on the back end. It's too stressful
that's where the
keeping up with
money is at.
frameworks, man.
Based on recruiters trying to, um, I have a long time recruiter. I'll send you her information because I told her about you, and
Thank
she
you.
she's like, oh wow, yeah, because she's the one that got me out of Inglewood. Okay, she got me out the hood and got me started, and she was trying to tell me that most of the money is made on the back end. Trying to do front end work is not as plentiful and profitable.
All I get phone calls is for front end work. They they call me for for the front end, but deep down inside, I mean, I'm building the entire solution.
Yeah, but what
But
it sounds like to me is that you started off with a set of recruiters where you specifically wanted front end work, and then they behind your back shared your resume with a bunch of other recruiters who also want front end work.
well, I mean, what does the recruiter ask for if it's not front end? What do they just say? Are you a C sharp
Middle,
programmer? Like,
they'll use middle tier.
okay, that's the keyword that I need to put.
Yeah, one of the other reasons why I showed you that that REST API example is that's a middle tier bread and butter type of job where they say, big ass company X is wants to use a product like DocuSign, for example, and they need a C plus, a C sharp programmer, or even an F sharp programmer to consume these APIs, and then we'll turn around and take the data that you're consuming from these APIs and give it to our front end people.
Hmm.
So that's another job market that you have probably not marketed yourself for yet.
No, no, I will. I'll figure out how to do that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, so I'll tell her to call you. I mean, she's been she's been out of the business for a while because she has some family issues. But I told her about you, and she's like, oh, yeah, it's like you remind her of me when I was younger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what's up.
So she's the one who told me. See, whenever I tell you about what a company is thinking, a lot of that information came from her or recruiters like her. So if I tell you a story about a company and then I say, well, then I left, and then they said this, and then they said that, you might ask common sense, how could you know when you left the company? How could you know they did all these things after you left the company? I know because the recruiters tell me.
Hmm.
And I shouldn't have said that publicly because maybe the wrong person just heard what I just said. But anyway, I don't want to get my recruiters in trouble, but
Uh,
anyway.
we'll catch up. I'm tired, man. So, hey,
Uh,
thanks for coming on and like, yeah, this is cool. So, I'm gonna attend your conference talk, whether it's
I
on
don't
the
have one
West
scheduled.
Coast or on the East Coast. What's
I
up?
don't have one scheduled yet. You got to tell me, what's your next thing you're gonna do, and I'll see if I can try it. Like you already doing like some test conference. You mentioned this the testing.
Automation Guild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's in
yeah.
mid-January. I mean, I already recorded my talk. I just have to be present for Q&A. Um,
Uh,
yeah, I haven't really applied for any like conference talks because I get stage fright. I'm comfortable like on my couch. You put me on stage in front of a whole bunch of people,
mhm, mhm.
and my heart's gonna start pounding. And I have this whole ritual where whenever I stand up in front of a whole bunch of people, my heart is pounding, right? And I'll always like I'll take my two fingers and I'll just feel like my pulse on my neck and I'll just start grinning. You will see this every single time I give a talk in front of people. And I'm like, oh, why is my anxiety kicking in? Like, chill out.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
why a lot of entertainers got on drugs because of the stage fright.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So I don't have any plans. I pretty much I'm in Miami for the group to give talks. But man, everything is web based here in Miami. I ain't trying to hear it. And I mean, if it's not web based, when people give talks, it's about like intro to unit testing. And like, so I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but everything that they talk about down here, I'm not interested in. I don't know if that means I'm advanced, I'm like I got to the next level, or I'm just not motivated. It's one of them.
Okay, I'll tell you, I'm gonna start looking for. I'm gonna do a Google search right after this call for F sharp API, F sharp based REST API, and I'm gonna see how many articles are out there. Because when you say Miami is web based, these some of these web based companies have to either build their own or consume a API. And if you get in that business, I'm sure that's lucrative.
Send me the links. Miami's a third world country, man. Like I love the physical like scenery of the city, but Miami gets on my nerves, man. When it comes to handling business.
Yeah, I just read the business articles that there's several cities in Miami that you should that are recommended to retire in because the cost of living is so low. And
Where?
also, I'll send that to you. I'll send that to you. I think it's Fort Lauderdale.
Maybe Pork and Bean Projects. Maybe Liberty City. Yeah, it's probably low over there. Oh, it's expensive here, man. Like, I mean, maybe if you move closer to the Everglades, it's expensive here. People from Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ontario. You know, like when people migrate, they go on vertical lines south. So, for the same reason that I assume that people in Chicago, maybe Indiana, they probably go down to like either Atlanta or Houston. Like they'll go to like those states, right? But Miami is expensive, man. Maybe like other parts of Florida, like Orlando or Tampa. Tampa's okay. I used to live there, but Miami, yo, you look at the cars down here, man. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls Royces, Maybachs, Maseratis. I didn't even know what a Maserati was, so I moved down here. So Miami's on another level, and they don't want to break bread with me. All right, I'll touch your head off, but let's
Yeah,
catch up soon.
I'm looking it up. I'll send you the link. I'm looking at the Forbes best places to retire in 2016. I'm sure Florida, some places in Florida
Key
is in.
West, maybe. Key West. Key West has a lot of potential, man. Or not even Key West, just the Florida Keys. Period. Like that's like a 80-mile strip that has a lot of potential for more development. So, all right, good stuff. I'm delirious. I'm about to hang up.
All right, cool, man.
All right, in three, two, one.